Crystal chandeliers illuminated the grand ballroom of the Sterling Mansion as the city's wealthiest families gathered to celebrate another successful year for Sterling Technologies. Amelia Sterling, the company's brilliant 34-year-old CEO, walked confidently into the hall wearing a tailored powder blue suit. Instead of arriving alone as everyone expected, she held the hand of Daniel Carter, a humble-looking single father dressed in a simple black shirt. Beside him stood his cheerful 7-year-old daughter, Emma, smiling innocently at the glamorous surroundings. Murmurs spread through the crowd as executives whispered that the billionaire heiress had fallen in love with an ordinary mechanic. Moments later, Amelia's father, Richard Sterling, stepped onto the stage. His face burned with anger as he pointed directly at his daughter. "You are disgracing this family," he shouted before hundreds of stunned guests. "You would throw away generations of wealth for a poor man?" The ballroom fell silent. Amelia calmly met her father's eyes. "I chose a man with honesty, kindness, and character," she replied. "Those qualities matter more than money." Richard slammed his hand onto the podium. "Then hear me clearly. From this moment, you are disinherited. You are no longer my daughter, and you will never receive a single dollar from this family." Gasps echoed through the room. Victoria Hayes, Amelia's ambitious cousin, smiled quietly, believing the company would soon belong to her. Without shedding a tear, Amelia slowly removed the Sterling family ring from her finger and placed it on the table. She thanked everyone for the opportunities she had received, took Daniel's hand, smiled warmly at little Emma, and walked out of the mansion with her head held high. Behind them, the mansion doors closed with a heavy sound, marking the end of one chapter of Amelia's life and the beginning of another she never expected. The next morning, Amelia woke up in a modest, two-bedroom apartment instead of the luxurious penthouse she had called home for years. The silence felt different. There were no assistants waiting outside her door, no chauffeurs, and no endless business meetings. Instead, the smell of fresh pancakes drifted from the kitchen as Daniel prepared breakfast, while little Emma happily set the table. Amelia smiled for the first time in weeks. Although she had lost her inheritance, she realized she hadn't lost the people who truly cared about her. Daniel never once asked about her former wealth or complained about their simple lifestyle. He treated her with the same kindness he had shown from the day they met. Soon Amelia began working as an independent business consultant, helping small family-owned companies grow instead of managing billion-dollar corporations. She enjoyed seeing hard-working entrepreneurs succeed, and for the first time her work felt personal rather than political. Every evening the three of them shared dinner, laughed together, and spent time reading stories to Emma before bedtime. Meanwhile, back at Sterling Technologies, chaos quietly spread. Richard struggled to keep investors confident, while Victoria convinced the board that Amelia had never deserved to lead the company. Profits declined, talented executives resigned, and rumors of financial trouble reached the media. Despite everything, Richard refused to admit he missed his daughter. Determined to prove Amelia had made the biggest mistake of her life, he hired a private investigator to uncover Daniel's past. "Find out what he's hiding," Richard ordered coldly. "No ordinary mechanic could have convinced my daughter to abandon billions." Weeks later, the investigator returned carrying a thick confidential file. As Richard opened the first page, his expression changed from confidence to disbelief. The quiet single father he had mocked was not who anyone believed him to be, and the truth inside those pages was about to shake the Sterling family forever. Richard Sterling sat alone in his office, staring at the confidential report the private investigator had delivered. The first few pages described Daniel Carter as a widowed single father living a quiet life. But the deeper Richard read, the paler his face became. Daniel had never been an ordinary mechanic. 15 years earlier, he had founded a groundbreaking artificial intelligence cybersecurity company in a small garage. After years of innovation, he sold the business to a global technology corporation for over $12 billion. Instead of chasing fame, Daniel quietly donated billions through anonymous foundations that built children's hospitals, funded scholarships, and supported families who had lost loved ones. Following his wife's death, he stepped away from the spotlight. choosing a simple life so his daughter Emma could grow up without bodyguards, luxury, or the pressure of wealth. His fortune was hidden in private investment trusts, making him far richer than anyone had imagined. Richard's hands trembled as he realized he had judged a man entirely by his clothes and modest lifestyle. Before he could process the revelation, another disaster struck. Sterling Technologies' largest investors announced they were withdrawing their support after discovering financial misconduct orchestrated by Victoria Hayes. Within hours, the company's stock plunged, banks froze major credit lines, and employees feared thousands of layoffs. Richard confronted Victoria, who admitted she had manipulated company accounts, hoping to force him into naming her the next CEO. Furious, Richard immediately removed her from the board, but the damage had already been done. That evening, with nowhere else to turn, the proud billionaire drove alone to Amelia's small apartment. As Daniel opened the door, Richard lowered his head for the first time in decades. He wasn't there to argue anymore. He had come to ask for forgiveness and, for help saving the company he had spent his entire life building. Daniel looked at Richard for a long moment before quietly inviting him inside. Amelia was stunned to see her father standing in the doorway, no longer proud or commanding, but tired and humbled. Richard admitted everything. He confessed that he had judged Daniel by his appearance, believing money defined a person's worth. With tears in his eyes, he apologized for publicly disowning Amelia and begged her forgiveness. He also revealed that Sterling Technologies was on the brink of collapse after Victoria's betrayal. Thousands of loyal employees could lose their jobs if the company failed. Amelia listened in silence, remembering the painful night she had walked away from her family's mansion. Before she could answer, Daniel gently placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No employee should suffer because of someone else's pride," he said calmly. The following morning, Daniel met with the company's board of directors. Instead of demanding ownership or revenge, he offered a financial rescue package that would stabilize the business, protect every employee, and restore investor confidence. The board was shocked when they learned that the quiet single father was one of the world's wealthiest entrepreneurs. News of Daniel's generosity spread across the country, inspiring millions. During a company-wide meeting, Richard stood before thousands of employees and publicly apologized to Amelia. He announced that she would return as CEO, not because she was his daughter, but because she had always been the company's greatest leader. He then turned to Daniel and said, "I spent my life building wealth, but today you taught me the true meaning of riches." Daniel smiled and replied, "Money can build businesses, but only kindness can build families." Months later, Sterling Technologies became stronger than ever under Amelia's leadership, while Richard devoted his time to charitable work alongside Daniel. Every evening, the family gathered around the dinner table with little Emma, whose laughter filled the home with joy. Amelia finally realized that losing her inheritance had led her to something far more valuable, a family built on love, respect, and compassion. In the end, everyone learned that the richest person in the room is not the one with the biggest fortune, but the one with the biggest heart.